good evening. It's a pleasure to be back here at Sunrush. We're grateful for your interest in reaching the lost, and this is going to be a very practical session tonight. I want you to see yourself in the evangelistic model. I don't want this to be just a lecture. I don't want it to be an academic exercise. I want this to be something very practical. I want you to imagine sitting around the kitchen table or being a part of helping someone else sit around the kitchen table and actually doing a Bible study. I want you to envision where you're going to fit into the evangelistic strategy. I think it's vital, it's important for us to talk about how do we get into the study. How do we bring a person from the community into a situation where they'll open their Bible, where they'll do a Bible study. And so you don't just walk up to somebody and say, hey, would you like to have a Bible study? That's a recipe for failure. And so how do we get them there? We want to introduce this evening what I call the evangelism model. Now, I'm going to spend a lot of time with your elders and your preacher on this model. But I at least want to introduce it tonight, and I have a sneaky suspicion that shortly this congregation will hear a whole lot more about this model. The model is composed of 6 steps. These 6 steps are taken to accomplish the mission. What is the mission? Go ye therefore and teach all nations. That's the mission. The mission is the Great Commission. In order for us to make the Great Commission a mission that is executable, we've got to come up with some type of model. We've got to have steps to take. So these 6 steps are what we use at our school to help get a congregational into an actionable part of the mission. Now, step 1 says contacts. It's vital. If you don't have contacts, you have nothing. So if this church does not have a boatload of contacts, you will not be successful. Now, in order to get contacts, we need your help. In order for contacts to be achieved, that step to be achieved, there are tools available to reach a success at this step. Notice here within the contact circle are going to be various items that we're going to teach you how to use. We're going to equip you because you have to achieve success here. If you do not get contacts, you cannot go any further. Contacts are important. Now, step 2, prospects. You got to prospect your contacts. Contacts are not just, they're not ready for Bible studies. If you ask a contact for a Bible study, they're going to run for the hills. They're going to think you're a religious fanatic. They're going to close the door and never come back. And so you must prospect contacts. We're going to teach you how. I'm going to give you a boatload of tools to use, that you can envision yourself doing. It doesn't require a preaching certificate from a school in order to do this. These first 2 steps are fundamental. In fact, I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest this, that the first 2 steps are going to be member-oriented. That your preacher, Brother Ron, if he's the typical preacher, is probably the worst at steps 1 and 2 of the whole church. And but now, when it comes to step 3, now he's there. He's going to be the best. But when it comes to steps 1 and 2, that's your job. And you're going to see that very visibly in just a moment. So I want the church to pay very close attention to this lesson tonight. If you want to break it down to even a more manageable model, 3 words. We need you to bring people, we need you to teach people, and we need you to keep people. You've got to have people in all 3 parts of the mission. You may be in all 3 parts. You may just be in 1 part. But let me be clear tonight. You will be in 1. You're not going to be a Christian and faithfully following the New Testament without being in one of those models. So somewhere in this model, you're there. You may be in multiple places. Her name is Brandy Fleming. Brandy Fleming is a member of the Whitacre Church of Christ. To my knowledge, she's never led a Bible study. Maybe one of the most evangelistic sisters I've ever met. Did you know you can be evangelistic without leading a Bible study? A lot of members of the church, they get squeamish and stomach thinking, well, he's going to ask me to do something that I'm just not capable of doing. You're probably more capable than you realize. But you don't have to lead a study to be evangelistic. Brandy Fleming is what we call a bringer. She's in step 1 and 2. She's very good with step 1 and 2. And so she does something that I don't do as well. So she brings me a piece of paper. She walks down the aisle. She has a smile on her face. She says, hey, Rob, I've got somebody for you. And I said, well, who you got? Sharon Fisher. Sharon Fisher, Rob, is a co-worker of mine. She's disgruntled with her church, and I think she's a contact. I said, great. I said, I love it. I said, we're immediately going to put this into action. Now, contact by itself is not going to produce a conversion. So in order to get that conversion, what we've got to do is we've got to create contact by prospecting her. We've got to bring her into the next level, the next stage. Now, if you open your Evangelism Simplified Guidebook and go to page 105, you're going to see the contact list. Now, most churches have a prayer list. Do you have a prayer list in your bulletin, raw names that you're praying for? This is not it. All right, I want you to keep a prayer list, and I don't want you to confuse these, but you must have a contact list. It's a printable list. It must be printed every week. I know I'm going to add to your jobs, Brother Ron, or to somebody, a secretary, but this is important because if you don't have this list, it won't work. This is one of the essentials when it comes to our model of evangelism. You must have the list. It's amazing how many churches call me after, 2-3 months. Brother Whitacre, we're struggling. The first question I always ask is, do you have a contact list? Do you know the answer I normally get? No. I said, well, there's no need to go further until you follow the process. Because I know you will not be successful if you don't do this. See, you will never hit a target you don't aim for. When a hunter goes deer hunting, I promise you, the reason he hits the buck is because he's got it in his sights. He doesn't just hit it because he just starts firing the rifle. That does not work well. You must focus on your target. You must be intentional. You don't accidentally become a successful business. If you're a successful business, it's because you have made those decisions that make you successful. If you are a successful father, mother, if you're successful, if you're successful at bagging groceries, because that's what I did in my first job. You're successful because you intentionally tried to be successful. You learned how to do it. You took time and you were trained and you pay attention to what you're doing. It's the same thing. In evangelism, we have to be intentional about it. We need a target list. That's page 105. I want to teach you how to use the list. We put Sharon on the list. As soon as we put Sharon on the list, we're going to begin to send compassion cards. Compassion cards are one of the prospecting tools that we use in our school. Compassion cards are designed to take a contact and till the soil. You do not plant seed on hard dirt. You till it first. And so a contact's like hard soil in the sun. You got to break it up a little bit. And so a miner would go out and take pay dirt, contacts. He would take the pay dirt and put it through the sleuth box, prospecting. He's got a what? A prospector. That's why we call him a prospector, because he doesn't go out there and just take a shovel of dirt and take it to the bank and say, how much are you going to pay me? They're going to laugh, because most of that dirt, almost all of that dirt, produces nothing. But there is in that dirt something, flakes of gold, maybe a nugget. And he's going to have to sluice it through the box, prospect it with his pan. You got to do the same thing. The model is the same. Army recruiters do this. Fundraisers do this. It doesn't matter what business. Give me a business and I'll show you how this model works. This is a model of success in almost every business out there, every family out there. It's functioning. This can't be skipped. It's amazing how we get this in the Army. It's amazing how we get this with fundraisers. It's amazing how we get this at the local band PTO. But we can't get this in the Lord's church. You prospect people in order to get results. You know what the Bible says in the book of Jude, verse 22? On some have compassion, making a difference. You want to make a difference in someone's life? Overwhelm them with cards. I don't want a form letter from the secretary. It does not work. It's not going to get their attention. I don't want one card with 20 signatures on there, because there's always a cheapskate in the audience trying to save $1. That is not what we need. What we need to do is take the cards from the church and we need to overwhelm them with love. We need to make sure the person in this community knows that the Sunrise Church of Christ is pouring their heart into them. You're praying for them. You're sending sweet notes to them. You're thinking about them on a daily basis. This has got to be very organized. This is not just some random card ministry that a few ladies do. This is congregational. This is organized. This has strategic purpose to it. This has guidelines. This, if done well, will be one of the most potent things this church does. This will literally turn you around. This right here has taken churches from almost no baptisms, 10, 12, 15 in 1 year. But you got to do it right. Now, I know some of you are already thinking, well, I already sent a card. This isn't it. Now, these messages are very, very strategically selected. And when you send the cards like you're supposed to, you're going to get results. And the results are going to be pretty amazing. As people begin to realize that the Church of Christ cares for me, and like any other church has ever done. Sharon Fisher goes out to her mailbox. We mail 5 on Monday, 5 on Tuesday, 5 on Wednesday, not all at one time. We want her to get these cards for 4 weeks. We're going to do it every Sunday. We're going to put 25, 30, 40 people in a room, and we're going to send and write cards every Sunday evening. And the church will send them out strategically. We're not going to send them all at once. Sharon's going to go out to her mailbox on Tuesday and have cards. Wednesday, she has more cards. Thursday, she's got cards. Friday, she's got cards on Saturday. She's got cards all over her kitchen counter. She's got cards all over her office desk. She's got cards. She is overwhelmed with love. Hey, Brandy, you know, when you said that your church would pray for me, I had no idea. Brandy, I've gotten 5, 6 cards a day since I've told you that. She said, I'm overwhelmed. I mean, the notes they send me, the prayers they're offering. She says, Brandy, I was in a dark place. I really did not think I was going to make it. That church has turned my life around. And I need to thank them. I don't know how to do it. She says, I know how you can do it. Just come visit. Just one time. Just come say thank you. She says, I'll be there. What time do you start? She says, 9 o'clock Sunday morning. I'll be looking for you. 9 o'clock Sunday morning, Nicole and I pop up there. We look, and here's this couple walking in the door. Nicole, I think that's a visitor. We walk up to him. Hey, my name is Rob, and this is my wife, Nicole. He says, my name is Jimmy Fisher. I said, Jimmy, nice to meet you. This is my wife, Sharon Fisher, on our contact list. And I said, Sharon, we've been sending cards to you. Yes, you have. I said, well, Sharon, I said, we're glad you're here. How are things going? Well, I'm doing better, thanks to y'all. She said, y'all are amazing church. I said, what thing? She said, are you the preacher here? And I said, yes, ma'am. She said, would you tell this church something for me? I said, absolutely. She said, tell them thank you. They made a difference in my life, and I don't even know them. I said, I'll do that. So I got up in the pulpit, and I said, church, we've got visiting with us this morning, Sharon Fisher, Jimmy, and she wants to thank you for all the cards, the prayers, the sweet notes, the encouragement that you have provided for her when she needed it the most. And I mean, she sat there to smile. I mean, she's overwhelmed with, with a sense of warmth. She's around people that care about her. So after that sermon, I walked up, and I do the same thing to every visitor. I don't think well on my feet, so I'm pretty robotic about what I do. I just went up to her and said, hey, Sharon, Jimmy, we got a little custom here, Willette. What is it? I said, we always take visitors out to eat. I said, could we take y'all out to eat at the local restaurant? Well, sure. Who's going to say no to a free meal? Have you seen what the prices of food is lately? I said, people love to go out to eat when you pay for it. So I said, let's go. So I took him out to eat, and we're sitting there visiting. It's not hard. This is real simple. Sharon, where are you from? I'm from the Bayou down in Louisiana. I said, well, tell me about them Cajun people down there. I grew up with them, Rob, and I love Cajun food. And I said, well, Sharon, we just had a great, Jimmy, where are you from? I'm more a local boy. How'd y'all meet? To a friend. It was a great conversation, and I hope you guys will come back. Well, we really enjoyed it. And that Sunday night, they did not come back. And I was almost glad, because that gave me an opportunity to evangelize through the church. And it's not about me. It's about the church. And I want the church involved. So I said, church, how many of you, raise your hand, if you met Jimmy and Sharon Fisher this morning? A good size of people raised their hand. I said, now for all those of you who didn't, shame on you, because you had a visitor walk into your church and you ignored them. I mean, you didn't have to knock a door. You didn't have to go find them. God put them in the pew, and you didn't say a word. That should never happen in the Church of Christ. Brother, when a member walks in, a visitor walks into our pews, you need to go say hello. So I don't know what to say. Can you say hello? Can you say, my name is, thanks for coming? You don't have to carry on a long conversation, probably better than you didn't. But you can at least smile at them and say hello. And they have made an effort to come here. You're so wrapped up in your little world that you don't even see them. Shame on us. That shouldn't happen. But it does. It happens every Sunday all over this country. And it's a sad thing. And we've got to reverse that. And I said, all right, church, I need your help. I said this to her. I said, brethren, I need you to go to the card room, and I need you to go get the card that says, thank you for visiting. We're thinking of you, praying for you, whatever. Come on back. I want you to flood them with cards. I don't care what team you're on. Team 1, Team 2, it doesn't matter. Everybody go get the card. So people went and got their cards, are filling them out. Thank you for visiting. Come back soon. She goes out to her mailbox on Monday. She got more cards. Tuesday, more cards. She's overwhelmed. She can't believe what she's seeing. And so she sends the email or the text. Brandy immediately sent it to me. So this is what it said. I saved it. She said, hey, Rob, I just received this message from Sharon's husband, Jimmy. He said, Rob, It's just the type of church he's been looking for. One that would take care of Sharon if anything ever happened to him. Now, Robbie's saying he's still praying, trying to let God lead him where he needs to be. I try to be very encouraging. Offer to answer any of his questions anytime, or even have a Bible study sometime. Now, Rob, I also welcomed him back at any time. I wasn't expecting him to message me back so quickly with the question, Rob, do you have to be a member there to take communion? Now, Rob, I know if he's asking that question, he needs to know a whole lot more. Any suggestions? The first thing I told Brandy Fleming is don't answer the question. We do not want to start out our relationship on the Lord's Supper. We've got somewhere else we're going. But what I need you to do is get him back. I need you to defer the question and get him back. Well, she's good at this. She gets it. She does exactly what I asked her to do. And guess who walked into the services on Sunday morning? Jimmy and Sharon Fisher. And they walked into the services and they're smiling. They sit down and I've got one mission. And I'm going to get there. And they went through services. People are friendly, and they're just overwhelmed with love. And I walked, Jimmy and Sharon, did you enjoy the service? Sure did. I said, Jimmy, we happen to have another custom. What's that? We love to invite visitors to our house to eat. I said, could you come over to the house and have dinner with us? Well, I'd say, yeah, Jimmy, yeah, we can do that. We'd love to. I said, okay, what day worked for you? She said, what about Tuesday, 6 o'clock? I said, works for us. And so now we're going to prepare to prospect the contacts. It's all about prospecting. And so I'm trying to get that soil ready. They're going to walk into our home, and I've got one mission. Bible study. But I can't take a contact and just have a Bible study. I gotta prospect them. So I said, Jimmy, what do you do for a living? He says, well, I'm a security guard. I said, okay, well, tell me more about being a security guard. He said, well, he told me about 10 minutes of stories. Not a big talk. And Sharon, what is it that you do for a living? I'm a kindergarten teacher. That's all I needed to say for the next hour. I got the lowdown on every kid in our classroom. And Rob, I can't teach anymore. Rob, all they want me to do is test those kids. Going to put them into anxiety and panic attack. And you know what it's like trying to get a kindergartner ready for a state test? I got big old profiles in every one of my kids. One of my little boys, best meal he gets is at school. Another little boy lives in a truck with his dad, Rob. And she just went on passionate about her kids. It always happens. It's just a matter of time, and I'm just waiting. They'll bring it up. I don't have to bring it up. Hey, Rob, can I tell you a little bit about our religious life? Oh, sure. Well, we go to church. I said, well, I figured you did. You're good people. We go to the big community church in Westmoreland. I said, well, that's a big one, And she said, Rob, we do mission work there. I said, what's one? She said, Rob, and we go every summer to the children's home in Honduras. We take our vacation time and we help with the children. I said, well, Jesus loved little children. That's wonderful. And she said, Rob, I got sick recently. I said, I heard. She said, and it was bad, Rob. She said, I was really worried about myself. And Rob, I got not one phone call, one card. I didn't get one visit from anybody in my church. Rob, I haven't been there in 6 weeks, and I don't even know if they've missed me or not. And I said, Sharon, that's awful. She said, I've never been so low in my life. And then this church I don't even know. These people I've never met. Brandy's church, y'all have overwhelmed me with love. I can't tell you what it's meant for us. I said, Sharon, it would have been our blessing to do it. And she said, Rob, I got something else to say. I said, well, say on. And she said, we've been married X number of years. This is our first time, Rob. I said, first time for what? She says, we have never been invited into anyone's home. Not once. This afternoon, one of your sisters invited us into her home. She cooked us a meal, and we were blessed. Amen. We travel this country, and we go from church to church. We go from place to place. Do you know how many times I've been invited into somebody's home this year? I can count it on one hand. People don't have you in their home anymore. It's one of the greatest mission statements you've got, and we treat our homes like prison cells with deadbolts, and we don't have anyone in our home. She looked at me and she said, this is my first time, and we have never been treated so well. I said, Sharon and Jimmy, I said, why don't we do this again? Why don't we come back? And she said, I'd love to. She said, I'd love. And Jimmy said, will she cook any more of that food? I said, yes, there's lots of food here in this house, Jimmy. He said, well, I'll come back for another meal. No man's going to turn down a good meal. I tell you what, lady, you got the magic touch, right? And so they're coming back. I didn't even bother to try to Bible study. They're not ready just yet, but we're getting close. And so they came back to our house for the second time. We're sitting around and we're just talking. Now I'm going to help them. I'm going to help them. Now here's how I did it. Listen to this. I said, Jimmy, I said, what do you think about the moral condition of our country? Now you may want to write that down. Now think about that question. What kind of response do you think I'm going to get from that question? See, I don't ask questions I don't know the answers to. I know what he's going to say. And you know what he's going to say. What's the average person out there going to say about that question? Oh, it's bad. They're going to say, things are great. Never been, it's bad, Rob. I mean, the moral conditions of our nation are, I said, yes, Jimmy. I said, Jimmy, why? What do you think he's going to say? It's all about God, Rob. I said, I believe it. It's the Bible. I know it, Jimmy. Hey, Rob, did you know it's all in the book of Revelation? I did not know that. And I said, no, Jimmy. I said, tell me about the book of Revelation. Well, Rob, it's there, 666. Yes. Armageddon? He said, 1,000-year reign? Yes. He said, 144,000? Know about it. He said, Rob, it's all there. Earthquakes, tsunamis. It's coming, Rob. We're in the last days, Rob. And I said, Jimmy, I said, the book of Revelation says a lot of things, you know. And he says, yeah, it does. I said, you know, Jimmy, I think I know the solution to the problems our nation is suffering. He said, you do? I said, I just so happen to have these little booklets. Jimmy, why don't we go over here to the table and go grab the Bible? And John 8:32. Sharon, would you look at that with me? John 8:32. Let's read that passage together. And they did. And we started our Bible study. I don't ask for Bible studies. Brother, you don't have to ask. If you do what you're supposed to do to a contact and prospect them, it's not very difficult to do this. And so we sat around our table and we started that study. They're reading the passages. We're filling out the booklets. They're loving it. In fact, they have no problem finding the answers. Brother, if you can read, you can do a Bible study. That's how simple this is. And we get to the end of the study, and I notice that Sharon's getting a little jittery. In fact, she's getting angry. You can tell. And I said, Sharon, are you okay? She says, no, I'm not okay, Rob. I said, what's wrong? She says, I want to know how I've gone to church all my life. And no one ever told me there was a difference between the Old and New Testament. No one ever told me I wasn't under the Old. I didn't know I wasn't under the Ten Commandments. I said, well, Sharon, I said, they never taught that. She says, Rob, she says, I just want to know why they never taught me that. It's so plain. It's right there in the Bible. I said, I don't know. You know why she's agitated? Because when people realize they have not been taught the truth, it agitates them. That's why. And I understand that. I said, Sharon, would you like to know more? She says, I sure would. I said, why don't you guys come back next week? Jimmy, would you like to come back next week? He said, well, will she cook any more of those desserts? I said, yes, lots of desserts here, Jimmy. He said, I'll come back. And so they came back for the second study. And we sat around the table and passed out the blue booklet on the Church of Christ. And we went through it. And we're talking about the Lord's church and worship and the singularity of the church, organization of the church. We're talking about the name of the church, and they love it. And Jimmy, did you know we were supposed to be taking the Lord's Supper every first day of the week? Why doesn't our church do that? I don't know. She said, well, that's why y'all don't use instruments. We were wondering about that. Oh, hey, did you know the Church of Christ is in the Bible? Jimmy, did you know that? Where's our church? Can't find it. When we finished that study, they were overwhelmed. She said, Rob, I didn't realize any of this stuff. No, I can't believe I've gone to church all my life and no one ever taught me any of this stuff. I said, well, would you guys like to do another study? We sure would. Wonder what else we're missing. I know what they're missing. They don't. And we started that third study. That next week, we sat around the table. Jimmy and Sharon started that study thinking they're going to heaven. You know, you don't baptize people going to heaven. No one's going to be baptized if they're going to heaven. Jimmy and Sharon have to learn that they're lost. The best way to do that, choose your Bible. Let them read. They'll figure it out. They're smart. People can put two and two together. Let's let them read the Bible. Do an organized study. Let them answer the questions. They'll get it. She got it first. She looked up at me and she said, Rob, she says, Jimmy? She says, I think you and I need to be. Now, Jimmy said, Rob, you just wait 1 minute. Are you trying to tell us we're going to hell? I said, no, Jimmy, I didn't say that. It's not my job. He said, well, I don't. I said, Jimmy, may I ask why you just said that? Is there something you've read in the Bible that causes you to question things? He said, well, I said, Jimmy, why don't we just keep reading? And if you've done what the Bible says, you're my brother. But if you have not, we can fix it now. He said, that's fair, Rob. I said, let's read the next passage. It didn't take 5 minutes. And Jimmy looked at me and looked at his wife. He said, honey, we need to talk. And they came and told us we need to be baptized, Rob. And I said, we can do that. And we can do it right now. Brethren, that's called a Bible study. And that's what it produces. This is what I'm trying to get you to understand tonight, is that in order to get here, there's a process you've got to follow. It's contacts and prospects, and we need your help to do it. And it's a congregational. And you may not be the one. Maybe Ron and his wife sit around the table, and do this thing. That's wonderful. But you have a job to do too. We can't do it without you. And if you work together as a church here at Sunbrush, what you could accomplish together, you will not accomplish individually. And if it was better for there just to be individual Christians, and if it was better and to help more people go to heaven for just to be individual Christians all over the world, not cooperating together, there would not be a Church of Christ. Do you know why the Church of Christ exists? Because it's the best way God could make for you to go to heaven. And so without the church, and without the church working together, the church is a body, and the church is made of members in particular, and that body has been set by God with members each doing a different job, and if the members don't do their job, the church can't do its job, and if the church doesn't do her job, people are not going to be saved. That's the point I'm trying to make tonight. That you've got to find your place in this model somewhere. I'm just giving you bits and pieces of it right now. I'm going to tell you more about Jimmy and Sharon. This is a year later. I want you to look at this picture carefully. On the left-hand side, that is Sharon Fisher. Do you know what she's doing, Ron? She's doing a Bible study. This is a new convert doing a Bible study. And on the other side of the table, the other lady there is Betty McCarter, who had just been restored, doing a Bible study. And now look at this next one. On the other side is Richard Pratt. Richard Pratt was the Methodist I talked about last night. He's doing a Bible study. On the other side of the table is Jimmy Fisher doing a Bible study in a mission field in Jamaica. If brand new Christians are able to teach people the gospel of Christ, what about you? Where have you been? Well, we're going to talk about that. Indeed, we are going to talk about that. In every Bible study, I was learning something more about evangelism. I want to be honest with you tonight. Listen to me carefully. I did not come up with all this in the snap of a finger. I didn't have somebody teaching me everything they had learned. To be honest, the evangelism model of the Church of Christ has almost been lost. So I've had to rediscover a lot of these things as I've just lived. But I am putting it together. And I'm starting to realize there's more to evangelism than defer, don't debate, show, don't tell, plant, don't pick. Those are 3 essential principles, but there's more to it. And thanks to the kindness and compassion of my own wife, who helped me see some of these things, I learned there's 4 more things that you need to be successful. Now let me summarize those 4 principles that I'm going to teach you tonight with this one phrase. People don't care how much they know until they know how much you care. They don't care that you know the Greek. They don't care that you know the Hebrew. They don't care that you went to a school of preaching. They don't care that you've memorized 1,000 Bible verses. They don't care that you spent your whole life going to the Church of Christ, that you never miss a gospel meeting, that you lead singing, that you lead prayer, that you teach Bible class. They don't care. Do you know what they do care about? Do you care about me? Do you sympathize with me? So this is a very different model, isn't it? This isn't about scholastics. This isn't about your ACT score. This isn't about what if you went to college or not. This is about, are you a human being that cares? A caring human being can do a lot. It's amazing what happens when people notice that you care about them. The way we treat visitors should never be the reason they obey the gospel. I don't want anybody obeying the gospel because they like my wife's lasagna. But the way we treat visitors may be the reason they never obey the gospel. Because we let them walk into our building, sit down, and leave, and we have no contact information. But I said hello. What good did that do? You don't know how to find them. You don't know how to get a hold of them. You don't know how to track them down. How many of our churches every Sunday have visitors that walk into our pew, sit down, and they leave, and we have no idea how to get a hold of them? You think that ever happens? I think that's the majority of our visitors. I don't want anybody obeying the gospel because they like my wife's lasagna. That is not the motivation. It ought to be the cross. But I promise you this, the way you treat visitors will be the reason they never obey, because they never come back. How many of you have visited churches on your vacations or when you travel? Raise your hand if you visited churches of Christ. How they treat you, does it make a difference? Does it make a difference if someone says hello? Does it make a difference if they make you feel at home? Have you ever been to a church and you say, that felt like home? But have you ever been to one that made you feel like you were a complete, utter stranger? And you wondered, if they did that to me and I'm a brother or sister, I wonder what they're doing to people who are not members of the church? Jesus said in Matthew 10:16, as he's talking to the apostles, this is the limited commission. So he's about to send the 70 out. Jesus doesn't send them out and say sink or swim. He gives them a pretty detailed list of instruction. It's a pretty good passage to study on evangelism. One of the things he says is quite interesting. He says, hey, I want you to be as wise as serpents and subtle as doves. Now, I think that passage can be abused. But I think the teaching is not as difficult as you might imagine. It's kind of obvious. Be as wise as a serpent. Is a serpent wise? Yes. Or doesn't eat. A serpent knows how to strategically approach its prey or doesn't successfully achieve its objective. So you be wise, like a serpent. He doesn't say, I want you to strike the prey like a serpent strikes its prey. It's not what he said. Just be wise. So a serpent is a sign of wisdom, right? Now notice what else it is. I want you to be as subtle as a dove. What's a dove? A cooing affection. So I want you to be wise and affectionate. That's what he said. That's his strategic approach to people. So do we need a strategic approach? Do we need to think about how we're going to approach the lost? Well, we do. And in fact, we have models of it. Take your Bible tonight. Over, get a Bible. Go to Acts 2:47. If you don't have one, you probably have a pew Bible. Take your pew Bible. And I want you to look at a passage. Because the model is sitting in Scriptures right in front of you. And the model was practiced by the first church. Right in Jerusalem, they did it. And it's something that I overlooked for almost all of my ministry. All my preaching, I didn't see it, didn't focus on it, didn't even know it was there. Praising God and having favor with all the people, the Lord added to the church daily as such as should be saved. And so, any church you can join is not the church of Christ, is it? Because the church is a church that God does what? What does God do to the saved? He what? What does he do to you? He what? He adds you, right? It's a bedrock principle. We don't vote on who can become members. I mean, we don't join churches. It's a biblical. That's all I got out of that passage. That's the first time the church is mentioned, Acts 2:47. It's in existence right there, Acts 2, and it is. But there's something else there. Praising God and having the favor of the people. Did you know the first century church was a favorable church? Huh? What do you mean? It's exactly what it says. It was a favorable church. People loved the church. So the general populace, they would look out there. They didn't love the Pharisees. Stuck up, right? They were stuck up. Sadducees, stuck up people. Pharisees, kind of, radical. I mean, the Pharisees and Sadducees, they weren't really loved by the people. I mean, these sects of Judaism, denominations, if you will, that's what they really were. You had the Essenes, the Herodians, the Zealots. You had all these denominations of Judaism that popped up everywhere. And by the way, when Jesus came on the scene, what did they want him to do? Would you join us? We want you to be a Pharisee Jew. And he said, no. We want you to be a Sadducee. He said, no. And so they both hated him, didn't they? Think about the application to today. Can you just be a Christian? Is it okay if I'm just a Christian? Do I have to be a certain kind of Christian? Don't they all want you to join their little group? And they want to put another name on it? What's the difference? Or there is no difference. What they did to Jesus in the first century is what they're trying to do to people today. And all I want to do is be a Christian. That's all I want to be. I don't want to be any type of Christian. I just want to be a Christian. What made the church so popular in the first century? Why did they like them? That word favor is very interesting. The word favor means grace on the part of the giver, kindness, acceptable. It was a kind church. They were kind. They were good-hearted people. They extended the extra mile. They went out of their way. They helped people. They didn't make them feel like second-class citizens. When you walked in their congregation, they had warmth. They extended it to you. They didn't make you feel like a perfect stranger. And they would give the shirt off their back to help you. Now, I want to know, how do you treat visitors? When's the last time you took a visitor out to eat? When's the last time you had one in your home? When's the last time you had a non-Christian in your home? I'm not talking about mama on Christmas. You know, we begin to realize why we're failing. Because the first century Christians, they knew how to do it. In fact, here's what they did. We can read about it. And the multitude of them were together. Notice this. They believed, were of one heart, one soul. Neither said any of the things that they had were their own, for they had all things in common. But they had, neither was there any among them that lacked. For as many as were possessors of houses and land sold them, distribution was made to every man according as he had need. What did they do? They would help their fellow man. They helped people in the community. This was a giving church, caring church, graceful church. Do you know the word grace, favor, is only used twice to describe a person? Look at the two. One is Jesus. That's pretty obvious. Luke 2:52. Jesus increased in wisdom, intellectually, stature, physically, in favor with, there's your word, same word of Acts 2:47. In favor with God, religiously, and man, socially. Did you know that Jesus was a social creature? Did you know Jesus was someone people enjoyed being around? Jesus was someone that people enjoyed getting together with. Jesus extended favor to people. He had conversations with people. He talked to people that no one else would talk to. Jesus was a man of the people. How about you? What kind of person are you? Do people like to be around you? Or when they see you coming, do they hide? Do they put the garage door down when you come into the subdivision? Do they shut the door at work when they see you walk into the office? Do they hope you won't talk to them because you're grouchy? That's not the Lord. 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse number 26, we find that Samuel was such a man. In chapter 2, the Bible says that Samuel grew on. He was in favor both with the Lord and men. So I'm asking you right now, do you extend that same favor to people? Because if you don't, you cannot be successful in soul winning. Because soul winning is people-based. Now, some people say to me at this point, Rob, what you're asking doesn't work. We don't have time. Listen, Rob, you don't understand American culture. I understand it all too well. But you say, Rob, in America, this doesn't work. Now, we're not a Bedouin society. We don't live in the Middle East. We don't have time for this. Rob, we got things to do. Rob, we do live in the age of the golden arches. Fast food. We can't be doing anything that you're suggesting doesn't work in America. People don't want it. And I could not disagree with you more. Brother, in fact, I'll go to the other extreme. I want to suggest to you there's never been a society in the history of human relations that's more susceptible to this approach than ours. And I'll prove it to you. In fact, in Genesis chapter 2, verse 18, the Bible says, the Lord God said, it's not good that man should be alone. I will make for him a helpmeet. Why? Because God did not make us to be loners. God made it. It's in your DNA. You like to be around people, right? You can't be separated from people for too long. Brother, do you not remember 2020? What happened when we locked people in their houses and we didn't let them out for 2, 3, 4 months? What happened to our nation? What happened to the suicide rate? What happened to drug addiction? What happened to domestic abuse? This nation got rewired because we're not designed to be like that. We got to be around people. We're a people-oriented culture. That's just how God designed us. Now, I want you to take a look at these symbols because these symbols represent something, and I want you to look at them carefully. Do you recognize those, Ron? Do you see those symbols? Do you see those? Some of you who are older, I know you know what they are too. You may not know all of them. Can you make out one of them? Those are symbols. And what are those symbols of? You might want to take. You can talk.
Social media.
Social media. Those are social media symbols. Why? Why are they so popular? Why do social media symbols like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram? Why is messaging, iMessaging, texting, email? Why has that become such a woven part of our life? Why? Because innately we are what kind of people? Social people. And that makes it easy, right? You can network with people all over the world, literally. News can travel from California to Texas to Tennessee to Florida within what, minutes? Seconds? Now, I'm going to ask you a question tonight, church. Listen to me. I don't care how good they get. I don't care if you have the max 5,000 Facebook friends. It doesn't matter. Most people would trade every friend they've got on social media for one warm-blooded human being who would sit, have a dinner with them and talk to them. They don't have it. They got 500 Facebook friends, but they have not one person to sit down, invite them in their home where they can have a warm-blooded conversation. This right here provides us an incredible opportunity because we have people out here who are thirsting for relationship. They're thirsting for someone just to talk to them. And because we have tried to substitute social media with physical relationships, we got people out here that are suffering mentally, emotionally, and they're just starving for communication. So I'm going to say this. I don't believe there's been a society in human history that's needed favor more than ours. We are a lonely people. We have no depth in our relationships. And if you're willing to take time out of your life to have a dinner, a conversation, to have a sinner in your home, and just listen to them, you'll be surprised how quickly you get a Bible study. No wonder you're not studying with anybody because you have no deep relationship. You know, there are some things you just don't tweet about. At least you shouldn't. There are some things you don't put on Facebook. I mean, you just don't put that on there. At least, well, you're not supposed to. If I would have a one-on-one with you, do you know what we learned when Jimmy and Sharon walked into our home? I didn't tell you this. Within just mere minutes, they were talking about some of the most intimate parts of their life. In minutes. We're sitting in our home, on our couch. We're exchanging conversation. And they're bringing up subject matters that I don't think in previous generations we would have discussed. They're talking about things they've struggled with, things their children have struggled with. You know why they're doing that? Because they needed someone to talk to. And we were willing to listen to them. And they just needed some way to get it out. All right, get your books out. Go to your notes section. Write these 4 things down. I want you to write 4 things down tonight. I believe they'll change. I believe they'll change your view on evangelism. Number 1, you got to open up your home. Brother, you must get sinners in your home. If you do not use your home as an evangelistic mission statement, you're going to struggle. All right? I want you to put out the welcome mat, unlock the deadbolt, get the chain off, and get sinners in your home. Because your home is a mission statement. Your home is a place where you can actually sit down and study the Word of God. You don't do Bible studies at Cracker Barrel. You're too busy with the biscuits and the gravy. Put them in your home. You know what you might do? A Bible study. You have opportunity. If you're intentional about it, you'll get it every time. Oh, by the way, you probably won't believe me, but I'll say it. Ask my family and children how many times we've had sinners in our homes and didn't get to study. Just ask them. I'm not going to give you the answer because you won't believe me. Ask them how many times, we've had lots of sinners in our home, we didn't get to study. When they said no, well, we couldn't get them around the table. Brethren, our homes are a mission statement and it's biblical. I want you to look at these verses with me. Acts 5:42. And daily and in the temple, in every house, they cease not to preach and teach Jesus. Where did they do that? In their home. Let's go to Acts chapter 2, verse 46. And they continue daily with one accord in the temple, breaking bread. And notice this, eating their meat with singleness and gladness of heart. Where? House to house. Let's go to another one. Acts 20, verse 20. And I kept back nothing that was profitable unto you. But notice this, I have showed you and I have taught you publicly and from house to house. Open your house. It's not a prison cell. Put sinners in your house and you'll have Bible studies. It's not that complicated. Maybe you thought I was going to give you some, scholastic doctoral dissertation about how to get evangelistic. No. Why don't you have people in your home? Why don't you get around sinners? You know what we've done in our life? I'll be honest with you. I'll just be honest with you what we've done. We have isolated ourselves from about every sinner. We're not going to get around them. After all, flee all appearances of evil. We can't be around sinners. And so you're around those sinners. And so therefore, how many opportunities do you have to teach sinner? None. because you have isolated yourself from every sinner they're in. And in our culture, now a lot of cultures you can't do that, but in ours you can. Watch this, mobile office. You don't have to go to the office and be around them. I don't like the way they talk anyway. What do they call it? Mobile orders. Don't you pull up to spot 7 at Walmart and you don't even have to see anybody? Isn't that wonderful? And they just put the groceries in your cart and go home, and it's great. And DoorDash, man, I don't need to go to the fast food line. That takes too much time, and gas is expensive. But, DoorDash, they'll just bring it right to my door, and I get my Chick-fil-A that way. Well, I do have to go to church, but that's okay. I like those people. We have no connection at all to sinners. When Jesus was talking to Zacchaeus, he looked at him and said, Zacchaeus, let's go to the book of Deuteronomy. No, not what he said, is it? He said, would you come down from there? I need to go to your house. We need to talk. Why? Because what happens in your home does not happen out in public. You're able to accomplish something. In fact, if you just study how Jesus approached sinners, watch how many times he goes to their homes. And Jesus said, Zacchaeus, let's go to your house today. And when Jesus got there, I just wonder what they discussed. I wonder if it was Roman taxes. I wonder if Jesus said, explain to me the tax code of the Romans. Do you think they're going to raise taxes next year? What's the percentage going to be like next year, Zacchaeus? I don't believe taxes even entered into the discussion. I think Jesus said something far more serious to talk about. Number 5. This is the second principle tonight. Write this down. Hospitality. Do you know how to treat people? Do you know how to treat sinners? When's the last time you took a visitor out to eat and you paid for it? Say, no, I got it. I got it covered. You whatever you want. And when's the last time you maybe just went and mowed the lawn, cleaned the car, washed the car, trimmed bushes, cleaned the house, delivered something, maybe paid for somebody else's meal? When's the last time you went out on a limb for somebody who's not even, they're not even members of the church? Exactly. Ever read the Sermon on the Mount? And what good is it when you go and do, take Brother Ron and his wife out for steak. Please, don't get me wrong. They enjoy steak, I'm sure. I don't know. Okay, no, she doesn't. I do. I love a longhorn steak. But I'm not trying to discourage you from taking out your preacher and his wife. They're sweet people. That's not what Jesus taught in Matthew chapter 5. I want to know what you're doing to the lost. Hospitality. Yeah, let brotherly love continue. Take care of your brother. But don't forget to entertain them strangers. Because thereby some have entertained an angel unaware. So I want to know what you're doing to people out in the community, how you treat them. Because if we don't treat the sinners with the hospitality that they rightly deserve, you will not be evangelistic. In order to become an elder, did you realize that you have to do this? This isn't like an option. It's not, we'll spend how many weeks talking about like children, how many children must an elder have, and faithful, what does it mean, how long, how many, what happens if a child dies, what happens if their wife dies, we've seen churches divide over that. I grew up in the church. I can count on less than one finger how many lessons I heard on what does it mean to be hospitable. But an elder must meet that qualification to hold the office. And yet, this is not just for elders. This is for all Christians. We all ought to be hospitable people. We ought to be people in the community. They look at you and they say, that's the kind of person I want to be like. Not saying, I don't want to be anything like them. And believe me, they won't. They'll never come because you're the only church they know. By the way, brother, do you know you are the Sunrise Church of Christ to the people who live next to you? Sister, do you know you are the Sunrise Church of Christ? You're the only Sunrise Church of Christ they know. So you know the neighbor that lives next to you, you are the Sunrise Church of Christ? This isn't. You are. You're the church. You're wherever you go, how you talk to people, how you act. Well, he wronged me 2 years ago. Yeah, Paul said, why not suffer the wrong? I understand there are times where maybe you need to. I understand there may be times when turning the other cheek and it's difficult. These things were set for what purpose? So you can establish what a relationship with them, so you can reach them. Because that neighbor over there, that person who at work continues to be a thorn in your flesh. So the way we treat people, is that important? It's very important. I want you to take your Bibles and Luke, the 10th chapter. I want to spend just 2 minutes here. Will you do that for me? Would you go to Luke 10? I'll do it with you. You'll do it. Open your Bibles, Luke 10. This is Mary and Martha. I want you to talk to Mary and Martha just for a minute. They have a lesson for you, and I don't think you want to miss this one. Luke 10. And here it is. Now it came to pass as they went, he entered into a certain village. And there was a certain woman named Martha who received him into her house. So Martha said, Jesus, would you like to come over to my house? Well, now what? Isn't that hospitable? By the way, would y'all invite Jesus to your house? Would you? If Jesus came in, how many of you would say, Jesus, would you like to come over? Or how many of you would not want Jesus in your house because of something you're hiding? Because as soon as you walked into the house, you know he'll see it. Because when you walked into your house, you know he could sense it. Now, have you ever been to someone's house, Brother Ron? They say, preacher, go help yourself. It's in the refrigerator. Get whatever you want. You open. Oh, no, preacher, that's not mine. That was given to me by the neighbor. I've had that. That was at a wedding some 3-4 years ago. Now, preacher, I don't drink that. They forget what's in there. I mean, I had a guy just about jump out of the chair and tackle me to keep me from opening the refrigerator. And then for the next 20 minutes, he explained to me why it wasn't his. Maybe that's why you don't want him in your house. You know, Martha had nothing to hide. She said, Jesus, come on in. She said, come on, sit down. And so Mary's out there, her sister, and that sweet Mary's sitting there at his feet. She says, Jesus, would you tell me about Abraham? Jesus, tell me about heaven. Jesus, what about this kingdom? Isn't that wonderful? The Lord's in my house. Oh, no, the Lord is in my house, and I've got the musty smell. This is all terrible. And the paint's peeling off the wall, and the floors are dusty and dirty, and the house hasn't been cleaned in 2 days, and I got dishes everywhere, spots on the glasses, and not matching silverware, and I don't have enough seats, and what am I going to cook this man? I'm a terrible cook. Oh, Jesus probably has a peanut allergy. I'm going to kill him. Is that who you are? Is that what you do the entire time? Because that's Martha. She about come unraveled right there. And what did Jesus say? Look at this. Jesus said, Martha was comforted about what you must serve me. Lord, does not thou care that my sister has left me alone to serve? Bid her to get in here and help me, Lord. Look what Jesus said. Jesus said, Martha, Martha, thou art troubled and careful about a great many things. But one thing, I don't think that's an accident. I don't think any word in the Bible is an accident. So if it was my Bible, you got a pen? Circle it. One. It's an important word. Circle it in your Bible. One thing. What's the only thing that matters, ladies, in your home? What's the one thing that matters? There's only one. Mary has chosen it. What did Mary choose? Lord, tell me about Abraham. Lord, tell me about heaven. There is only one thing that matters. By the way, tonight, ladies, if you don't think you can cook, I got a suggestion to you. Go down here to the KFC, get the bucket, put it in a platter. They'll never know. Get them in your house. Because we can't do our job if you don't do yours. I don't know if you realize it tonight, ladies. There are some things you do better than I do. And I can't do my job without you. Ladies, you have gifts that I don't have. And members, you have gifts that your preacher doesn't have. And if you're not willing to use them for the saving of souls, this church won't make it. It is not fair to put the growth factor of this church on one family. Because if you do that, you'll wear this man down. He won't last. It's not how the church works. You must work as a family here. Everyone's got to work together. Hospitality is more about Christian service and less about house cleaning. Let's go to number 8. By the way, 4 things that Jesus did when he met a sinner. Did you see that? I'd take a picture of that one. Brother, that one right there, that would preach. That's a full sermon, Brother Ron. When he met people, what did he do? When Jesus was about his ministry, he always identified sinners. He invested his time in them, he interacted with them, and he always invited them to change his way. Where did he do that, by the way? In their home. Even a Pharisee named Simon. He went to their house. You can learn a lot by the master of it. Number 3, write this down. This is principle number 6. Hearken. What does that mean? Listen. You've got to learn to listen. You're going to be effective soul winner, you got to listen to people. Wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. James 1:19. So Jimmy and Sharon Fisher are sitting in our home. And I'm listening. And Jimmy and Sharon said, now, Rob, he said, Rob, it's all in the book of Revelation. Remember that? What should I have done at that point? Had a Bible study in the book of Revelation? Friends, the book of Revelation is the last book in your Bible for good reason. You don't begin a Bible study in the book of Revelation. So what should you do when someone brings up that, like tongue speaking? How about they bring up miracles? How about they bring up, I don't know, something else? And they throw it out there, and what should you do? Listen. Just listen to them. You don't have to talk. God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. That means you're to listen twice as much as you're to speak. Don't talk. Just listen. Because as you're listening, you're getting clues into their spiritual life. They're giving you an insight into things that have happened and things they're interested in. You're taking notes. You know what a military person calls that? Intel. It's intelligence. You're gathering information. You're in the intel stage. You're trying to figure out, do they believe in God? Do they believe in the Bible? Do they go to church? Where do they go to church? What do they believe? What do they believe about? Are they Christians? Muslims? What are they? Listen to them. You'll find out. Stop talking so much. Let them talk. There's a story told about Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and it helps illustrate the point, so I'll just tell you the story. It said that he was a pretty sneaky president. He had polio as a boy, and I think you remember the story, and he had to have braces just to stand, very painful. He'd go down to Warm Springs, Georgia, several times a year, soak in the Warm Springs. There's a national park there that talks about his, even as a president, he'd go down to this little spring and soak, and so, but he was a joyful fellow. He liked to play practical jokes. So one time his chief of staff walked in and said, Mr. President, the ambassadors, the dignitaries, the world leaders are here to see you, Mr. President, and they're going to form the receiving line, and Mr. President, can we bring them in for them to meet you? And he said, Bill, he said, no one listens to me in these formalities. He said, just dismiss them. Let them go eat. They don't listen to me anyway. And Mr. President, you must meet the ambassadors. They come from thousands of miles. Mr. President, you've got to speak. But Bill, they don't listen to me. It's all just a formality. They're just going to shake their head. They don't hear a word I say. But Mr. President, you must do. I don't want, Mr. President, we're sending them in. Please greet the guests. Bring them in. And they began to line up, and the president was going to show Bill. And so he said, hey, Mr. Ambassador, come over here. Yes, Mr. President, come down here. I killed my grandmother last night. Marvelous, Mr. President. Oh, it's so wonderful to be here in the White House, and these fellas of marble are beautiful. Oh, Mr. President, this is great to be here. We're just honored to be in your presence. And tell Eleanor, send our regards to your good wife, Mr. President. Mr. Ambassador, you come here next. Yes, sir. Lean down. I killed my grandmother last night. Oh, God bless you, Mr. President. Oh, it's so wonderful. You're doing such a good job in the war effort, sir. Keep up the good work. Give our regards to the cook, sir. No one listens. No one. The last ambassador. He's from the little country of Bolivia. He comes by and says, Sir, come. I killed my grandmother last night. Mr. President, I'm sure she had it coming to her. One person listened of the entire group. Are you listening to people? Are you too busy talking? Let me give you one more principle, then we'll take a break. I got one more to give you. This is the seventh. These are important. I need you to hesitate. Not only do I want you to listen to him talk about the book of Revelation, and I know you don't agree with it. Not only do I want you to listen to them talk about their tongue speaking, their miracles, and whatever else it is they're doing at their church, I want you to hesitate. I don't want you to engage. I do not want you to offer a counter. I want you to let it go. I want you to defer every question they ask, and then as they speak, I don't want you to interrupt them. I want you to listen, and I want you to hesitate and not march up that hill. Don't do it. There's a lot of lessons you can learn in silence. Sometimes silence is strategically the winning formula, and Jesus practiced it often. In fact, in Matthew chapter 15, verse 22, he answered her not a word. He didn't talk. You don't have to talk in order to make your point. Sometimes you can get a victory without talking or saying a word. Jesus was the master at this. John 8, verse 6, he stooped down, wrote on the ground as though he heard them not. He didn't speak. You don't have to talk. And I want you to go here, Matthew chapter 27. And he says, he answered him never a word. And so much of the governor marveled greatly. Don't talk. Just let it go. Where do you want to fight your battle? When do you want to pull your sword out? President Lincoln was in trouble. And he was losing the war. And he knew it. The polls had come in. The nation had turned against him. He's going to lose the election. It's a spring. The election's in the fall. He knows it. He's done. And so he tells the generals, he says, bring the generals home. He brings them home. He said, generals, he said, we got a serious problem going on right now. We're losing this war. I'm going to lose the election. Mr. President, we're winning the war. We just got Lee at Gettysburg. We got him on the run. He's down there in Virginia just trying to protect Richmond. Have you not noticed we sewed up the port down there in New Orleans? And Mr. President, we got them 6 ways from Sunday. We're winning the war. Oh, boys, you don't get it. I lose the election, you lose your war. The next president will come to terms of peace with Jefferson Davis. And you lose. He said, you got to bring the war to an end right now. You can't let this war go on. You got to end it. I need to know which one of you has an answer. And no one would raise their hand. Until finally one general had the courage. Yes, General Sherman. Mr. President, I know how we can win the war. But you won't like it, Mr. President. General Sherman, do your job. And he did. And he was good at it. He rounded his troops up just north of Chattanooga, Tennessee. And the Union, they came with force. The Confederates didn't have a prayer. The Confederates knew it, so they got themselves up in the mountains of Chickamauga. And when Sherman got there, he took that city and he leveled it. There wasn't anything left. They saw the Confederates up there in the mountain, and the Union, they're so excited, they just charged. The Confederates, they had their artillery, their infantry, and their cavalry strategically placed. And when the Union soldiers approached, it was a bloodbath. They came back and said, General Sherman, we can't take him. He says, what are we doing up there? We don't need Chickamauga. He had one objective. And he said, let's march. And they kept going. They got down just outside of the northern part of Atlanta, right out there in the Kennesaw Mountains, Mount Kennesaw. And they saw them again. There they are. They said, let's get them. But again, the Confederacy was dug in. So the Union forces advanced, and when they got to the line, they mowed them down. It was awful. They couldn't break them. General Sherman says, what are you doing over there in Kennesaw? Let's take Atlanta. He set the city on fire. And there was nothing left when he was done. He destroyed the city. They won the war. Now my lesson is simple. Listen to me, church, because this is very important. You do not have to win every battle in a Bible study. Let them win some battles. It's okay. So if they want to talk to you about tongue speaking, let them. If they want to talk to you about once saved, always saved, just listen. You say, but preacher, you got to set it off. We'll worry about it. Do you know what once saved, always saved does to your mission? It takes you away from the cross. But every book of the Bible refutes it. I know that. But now's not the time to engage them. But they're way off on the role of women. I get it. But now's not the time to engage them. I want you to get them to the Bible study, defer every question, hesitate to answer, hesitate to talk when they bring up these things, write down the questions for later usage, listen to them, and do the Bible study. Because you're trying to get them to the cross. Those other issues, they'll take care of themselves later. That's not the Great Commission, say teach, baptize, teach. Pick your battles wisely. Let me put it like this. Before you march up the hill and take out your sword, are you prepared to fall on it? Because you just might. Do you really want to die on the book of Revelation? Brother, most of us, there are most members of the church who don't understand that book. So we're not going to let us die on that hill. Now, did you write these down, everybody? Did everybody write these down in their book? Everybody got these? There's 4. I gave you 3 last night, right? So there's 3 last night. There's 4 here you got. Use your home. Extend hospitality. Hearken, hesitate to answer. Now, here's what I want to do. I'm going to end with a story. Then we're going to take a 5-minute break. Here it is. Oh, by the way, write this down. We must earn the right to have a study. Write that down. We must earn the right to have a study. If you want a Bible study, you got to earn it. As a church, you got to earn it. So it's just not given to you. You got to earn it. Now, Randy Fleming. She comes down the aisle. She's got a piece of paper in her hand again. And on the piece of paper is Dustin and Natalie McKinney. And I looked at that and said, Dustin McKinney. I said, no, Brandy, not Dustin. Rob, it's bad. It's cancer. But he's young. He's the basketball coach at Red Bowling Springs High School. Everybody knows Dustin. There's no way. He said, Rob, and they can't find a surgeon that will operate. It's bad. I said, hey, Rob, we got to get him on our compassion card list, page 105. And we put him on the list, and the church started sending cards, and we got to overwhelm him. We got to get to him before it's too late. And I'm sitting in my house one evening. I said, hey, Jared, let's go visit Dustin McKinney. So we got in the truck. We went down the road. I knocked on the door. He opened it up. He said, Rob. I said, hey, Dustin. I know him just a little bit. I'm also a basketball coach. I coach for Cookville High School down in Cookville. And I play against him occasionally. I don't like to play against Dustin. They breed basketball players at Red Bowling Springs. It's hard to compete. And in any case, he said, what's going on? I said, well, Dustin, I heard you got cancer. He said, man, Rob, it's bad. He said, would you ever thought my age, I said, Dustin, I don't know what to say, but I know what I can do. He said, what do you want to do? I said, I want you to let me pray for you. He said, yeah, I need prayer. I said, can we bow our heads? We prayed and offered God's, I asked God to petition him on his behalf. And we finished the prayer. And Dustin, I said, would it be okay if I came back and prayed again? He said, man, Rob, you can come back every day and pray. Don't worry, I will. You know why? Because I have one mission. Praying for Dustin is not going to get him to heaven, is it? No, I never lose sight of my mission. I don't get distracted. I'm going to prospect him with prayer. Prayer is a good prospecting tool. And so we prospect. So I want to come back. But anyway, Sunday comes, and I'm with one of my elders, Steve Draper. I said, hey, Steve, let's go visit Dustin. He said, Rob, I don't know Dustin. I said, let me introduce you. So we went over to the house, knocked on his door. I said, hey, Dustin, this is Steve Draper. Went over, oh, nice to meet you. Y'all come on in, come on in. Now I'm in the house. I have one mission, and I'm in the house. I sit down around the living room. His little son, Neyland Stadium, Tennessee. It runs through the living room, slams down the little tight basketball, and Mama's making chocolate chip cookies right there in the kitchen, and we're just talking about football because that's what he had on, and I'm just having Dustin, hey, where do all these cards come from? Oh, that's that church you preach for, Rob. I get 5 or 6 cards every day. Wow, those are nice people. They're all praying for. We're all praying. We're rooting for you, Dustin. Hey, Dustin, I noticed your lawn out there is kind of getting hot. I said, we'll let Church of Christ mow your lawn until you're better. Huh? Rob, y'all don't have to. I said, I know, but we want to. That's really not. I'm not supposed to be out under the sun. I said, we got it covered. Steve looked over and said, we will. I said, with elders, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. It works really well. And so I said, yes, we've got you covered, And so we're just talking, and we left that evening and got to church, and I met with the elders. The elders wanted to talk to me, and they said, Rob, we need to talk to you tonight. I said, what do you got? They said, we want you to go back over to Dustin's house, and we want to offer to pay for his highest medical bill. Huh? We want you to offer to pay for their highest medical bill. Brethren, that's very kind. Rob, he's a good person, and Natalie, they didn't ask for cancer. We want to help them. I said, okay. So I went back to their house the next week. I made the offer. They didn't need any help at the time, but they were overwhelmed by the offer. And Natalie said, no, Rob, we found a doctor to do that surgery. I said, great. I said, I'm glad. And he said, by the way, Rob, it's in Vanderbilt. I said, I'll be there. Rob, you can't go to Vanderbilt. I said, I'll be there. The day of the surgery, Natalie's mom, Dustin's mom, and I sent Nicole messages all day to update the church. We're all praying for Dustin. At the end of the day, finally, it was the last surgery. Doctor comes out. He says, McKinney family. He walks over and, Miss McKinney, I don't know if you're a praying person, but if I was you, I'd pray. Because when I got in there, it was bad. Miss McKinney, I got margins all the way around that cancer. We got it out. We were overjoyed. Tears of joy fell out of our eyes. And I prayed, and then after I finished that prayer, we went home. And Natalie called us a week later and said, Rob, Dustin would like to see you. My family loaded up. We got to the house, and he said, I said, Dustin, there's something I've been needing to talk to you about. He said, well, what is it? I said, I'd really like to talk to you about the Lord. He said, Rob, I sure would like to know more about him. I just so happen to have these little booklets. I always have the booklets because I have one mission. 3 weeks later, when Dustin and Natalie realized they were lost, they were baptized. Can you do that? Can you mow a lawn? Can you send a card? Can you pray for somebody? Can you cook a meal and bring it to them? Can you make a visitor who walks into this church feel welcome? Can this church prospect contacts? Absolutely. This church can do that. Brother, I'm so glad you're here tonight. My next lesson will be a little shorter. I'm going to give you a 5-minute break. This is an important lesson because I want you to... Can you see yourself in this lesson somewhere? If you can see yourself in this lesson, raise your hand. Can you see yourself? Raise your hand. Now, if you can't see yourself in this lesson, I need to go give you CPR. All right, because you're 6 foot under already. Because you can write a card, you can mow a lawn, you can cook a meal, you can pray for somebody. That's what this is all about. This is congregational evangelism. You can do this. Now, the next lesson, everybody have their Back to the Bible booklets. Everybody have those green, blue, and red. We're going to look at it, the next lesson. And I need your help. So you're going to have to write in them. So get your pen ready for the next lesson. Let's take 5 minutes, get a drink of water, and we'll come back in, and we'll finish our lessons for tonight.